Family, what is up? Man, thank y'all so much for tuning back into the Living Beyond podcast. And today, it's going to be pretty good. I'm super excited about it. I have a special guest with me. Once again, I told you all season two, all episodes, we bringing somebody in so that y'all can stop listening to me and y'all can hear from other people that's going to inspire you, help you live beyond, help you have faith beyond, and help you grow beyond whatever it is that you are going through in life. And today, listen, it's going to be good because there's a lot of people out here that struggle with this thing. Yeah, I'm talking about this thing called insecurity, right? So we have none other than Miss Taylor Grant with us, and she is about to come and bless us. She right now she's currently a med student in Canada. Like, whoa, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that is, I'm gonna let her tell you everything that she does. But she's a med student in Canada. She's coming to grace us, and help us grow beyond this thing called insecurity. So y'all tap in, tune in, and Miss Taylor Grant, how are you doing today?
I am doing well. How about yourself?
Doing good, doing good. Can't complain one bit. And yeah, so you're a medical student, and before we jumped on this podcast, before we went live, you said that you're a natural. I don't want to mess it up, so I'm gonna let you say it. What type of medical student are you?
I'm a naturopathic medical student.
Okay, talk about it a little. Talk about it a little.
Yeah, so naturopathic medicine is it's still, we go through the 4 years of medical school and but it's kind of different than allopathic medicine, which is like your Western medicine and what you're normally used to. So instead of an MD, I'll be an ND. And so our
Dope,
approach to healing is just quite different. Like we focus more on the root cause of of disease, like why you're sick rather than just, oh, you have this disease, let me just give you this pill. So yeah, it's more using more like herbs and natural medicines and
yeah,
uh, you know yeah, mental health. Like we take the whole body approach to
dope,
healing. So
dope.
yeah.
That's dope. Listen, and I'm all about everything just being natural. You know what I'm saying? And the holistic healing of the mind, body, and soul.
Absolutely.
And I truly believe if we change our eating
Absolutely.
habits, if we change our mindsets, there's a whole lot of healing there. But that's a whole other conversation for a
A
whole
whole
nother day.
another.
Listen, we may have to get you on here again just to talk about how we can live beyond eating all this mess we eat, how we can grow beyond all,
Absolutely.
you can take us there. But right now, we're about to jump in and tap into how we can grow beyond this thing called insecurity. And so, like always, I jump right in. You know, I don't play around the fence. I go right into it. And the first question that I have for you today, that a lot of our listeners would love to know is, what age did you know what I'm saying? We're gonna talk about you, but I want you not to only just talk about you, but help people out there. What age did you start noticing this thing called insecurity creeping into your life?
Um, it's actually like before this question came up, it's
Yeah.
actually something I never really thought about.
Wow.
But I would say that it started for me pretty early on. I would say as a little girl. But I never really like growing up, I never really felt like I fit in anywhere. And where I really noticed it, starting to kick in the most was the point in my life where I was like drawn closer to God, but like also trying to find my place in this world. This was the time that I was like finding my identity.
Mm.
This was also the time where my health, crazy enough, was actually attacking me the most through actually a neurological disease, which is why I went into naturopathic medicine.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
so this was a time that, my health, this disease hit its peak. I didn't have answers then, but it hit its peak. And I struggled a lot mentally because, again, it is a neurological disease. So
Yeah.
this condition not only affected me physically, but it affected my mind, it affected
Wow.
my thinking, my memory, my speech. I remember I literally used to stutter, like just trying to speak to people, not being able to
Wow.
think through certain situations. And so I just became a mute. Sometimes there were even moments where I would just blurt out things that made no sense and I couldn't help it. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I became a mute. And so, like, even like things like public speaking was like the ultimate nightmare for me because
Wow.
I couldn't talk to people, and I didn't know why I couldn't talk to people. I didn't know what was going on in my body because, again, I didn't answers until a year ago. So not only was I dealing like with all these symptoms, but because no doctor could help me,
Yeah.
I thought it was just who I was. I thought that all of these things that I was going through was just who I was.
Wow.
I can't tell you how many physicians I've seen that told me that it was all in my head. Oh, you're just
Mm.
depressed. Oh, it's just this. feeling. And so, of course, that is what I believed. And so
Yeah.
I remember I used to say things like, oh, like I used to speak things over myself, like say things like, oh, I'm stupid, or when I talk, I
Wow.
sound like this, or I'll never be able to speak to people. And little did I know, like these were the lies of the enemy, like getting me
Yeah.
to almost curse myself at a young age. Because again, I believe he knew exactly who I was. And so, again, I never really felt good enough. Even, I played sports for years. Even in sports, I could never really be my best because my body was just tearing me up.
Mhm.
But again, I had no answers. And so, yeah, I always believed the lies that I would just always be mediocre, and I would I always just dealt with those insecurities, and I never thought it would go away. And it wasn't until God separated me that He was just able to show me this whole picture. And in this place, I realized that actually, like, I'm not quiet at all.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm kind of a firecracker. Actually, I
Come
have a
on.
lot to say. Like, I am this, like, I'm even realizing now, like, I am this like lioness. And so when I drew
Hmm.
closer to God, I saw things in myself that I didn't see in me before. I saw myself in God's eyes, and I realized that, these insecurities were just all lies of the enemy that I accepted early on because, I was getting my validation from the world and not from God, whether that be
Wow.
doctors, people, like I was getting my validation from the world. And so, yeah, it started pretty early on.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
And that's crazy because every guest that I have on this podcast for this season, I don't know why God has placed certain people in my heart to speak about certain topics because I
Mhm.
truly don't know you. You know what I'm saying? Like I know
Yeah.
you from
Yeah.
all your Instagram feeds, your posts and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And I was like, she be
Mhm.
posting a lot of inspirational stuff, you know? And I didn't even know that you dealt with that or struggled with that in the past. And so it's
Oh,
only
yeah.
like, dang God, you just did that. You know what I'm saying? Because we
Yep.
don't know what people past look like, you know what I'm saying? And just to see you grow beyond what
Yep.
you the doctor said you have. You know what I'm saying? The
Yeah.
same thing
Mhm.
with my whole
Absolutely.
situation in my case, but we're talking about you
Mhm.
today and you
Yeah.
evolving and growing into this thing you call you being a lioness. You being
Right.
the queen
Right.
of the jungle, right? Like you're
Yes.
walking
Yes.
in you're walking
Yeah.
in the image that God has created you in. And you're
Absolutely.
accepted that.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? And I think it's so important for us as believers to accept the image that
Mhm.
Christ has made us in. Because it's in his
Absolutely.
image that he has made us. And once we come to realize that and understand that, we can grow beyond anything. And prime example, you're a
Mhm.
living testimony right now. You know, a lot of people, I
Yeah.
truly didn't know that, and that's why it just rocked my world. It just shocked me, and I'm like, wow.
Oh,
I'm like, wow. Listen, y'all, I want to take a minute. If you don't follow Taylor on Instagram, you want some inspiration, you want to know some truth. The girl don't sugarcoat nothing. You feel me? She's going to give it to you. She goes there. Okay, follow her. I'm going to drop her social media in the description. I'm gonna throw it up on the screen if you're watching on YouTube. But listen, let's keep going on into this conversation. I'm just blown away right now. But when those things were happening in the past, the stuttering and you feeling like this and you speaking these things over yourself, because we have to understand there's power, the power of life and death is in the tongue. And so we can speak things over ourselves so much so to the point where we really
absolutely.
start to believe that. You know what I'm saying? When we start to walk in what we're saying,
Yeah.
what we
100%.
declare over our lives and stuff, and it's like, nah, we don't need to do that. So what were triggers, you know what I'm saying, for you that took you to that place?
Yeah, honestly, I would say that anything that had to do with me opening up my mouth, and
Mm,
again, I knew it was always the enemy because he never wanted me to get to this place where I would open up my mouth. But I know I mentioned earlier, like public speaking,
mm,
things like crowds or being around people, even like friends, like
yeah,
for too long. Like I've always been a loner. Like I've always had friends and friend
yeah,
groups, but I think even my friends could attest to the fact that I've just always been a loner.
yeah,
And it was because honestly, I didn't even know like who I was or how I was feeling half the
mm,
time. So being in crowds or in situations where I just had to be vocal, it really triggered me.
wow,
But also, one thing I was thinking about when I was thinking about this question was also, I would say from church, and it's not saying anything bad from church, but
mm,
like I know for me, I've always known to some extent that I could hear from God or that I have certain spiritual gifts.
Yeah.
Even, when I couldn't understand it. And I just knew that there was just something different about me.
Wow.
But, nobody ever saw that in me. And again, not just in church, but in just in general, nobody really ever saw past, that shell that I had up. And so,
Mm.
again, like I said before, I was always the quiet one. But like, I remember, I was thinking about this earlier. I was like, I remember I literally used to wait for the day that one day, I would be pointed out in the crowd and told that I had a future, or that I had a gift, or that I was struggling with this, and that I was going to overcome this, or that, like, you're appointed by God to do something big with this and that.
Yeah.
And I used to look for that. And not only did I used to look for that, but I used to literally long for that.
Mm.
And, that was something that mattered to me then, because, we're kind of like taught or conditioned that that is the way that you get appointed to certain, to be something great. And so, that this is how you become somebody, or the role, just the start of the road of walking in your destiny is kind of when
Yeah.
someone notices you. So, it's usually where people, get trained and grow, to grow and all this stuff. So
Yeah.
when no one anywhere ever saw me or noticed who I was, behind the shell, I would struggle with the lies that no one would ever, and that I would never get trained or become, who God has called me to be. And again, that breeded a lot of insecurities in me. But, little did I know it was on purpose. God knew that one day He would be the one to teach me. And so I would say, no matter what the enemy did, it
Come
was
on.
really God who's behind it all. And so, for me, it wasn't until God, again, like I said before, God got me by Himself to, to show me that, daughter, like, I called you.
Yeah.
I remember I was literally struggling with, preparing to even open my mouth about, about a year or so ago, and thinking, oh my gosh, what are people going to say about me? What are people going to think about me? Nobody's
Yeah.
ever seen the side of Taylor before. And, so what are people going to say or think? And God spoke to me. He said, Taylor, I appointed you. He said,
Come
why do I
on.
need man to give you permission to use a gift that I gave you? And,
Come
it's a
on
gift that
now.
you were, I affirm you, and that's all you need. And so, I just always go back to the scriptures, like, what did He say? I think it's in Jeremiah. He said, I knew you, before I
Before.
formed you in your mother's womb, I knew you,
Come on.
before you were born, I set you apart,
Come
and I
on.
appointed you as, what did I think, a prophet to the nations. And so, He doesn't say that man gives gifts. He says that every gift, and, every good and perfect gift,
Come from
comes
above.
from above. He doesn't
Yeah.
say from below or from this world. He says from above. And so, again, like, when we're talking about these things, these things don't come from the world, or from, people that we think are in power, or,
Mm.
have the ability to appoint us. That's not where our gifts come from. And, don't get me wrong, there's nothing with there's nothing wrong with, mentorship and discipleship and training. But, I just always say, don't confuse that with God's standard,
Come
God's
on.
standard of calling you, or being able to use you. I think that oftentimes we kind of limit ourselves and what, like, God can do, because we haven't been noticed. But,
Mm.
I can definitely say this, in this time, God, He's been saying, I'm gonna use the very foolish things to shame the wise. And so I'm talking about the uneducated, the unqualified, the misfits, the misunderstood, the wild
Yeah.
ones. Like, and that's honestly what I feel I am. I don't feel like I'm actually that qualified. I'm like,
Come
actually,
on.
I don't actually bring that much to the table. But again, this is where God is actually really able to showcase His glory. You don't have to come with much.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
so, again, yeah, those were just kind of my triggers that just kind of kept me stuck for so long. But again, He's been able to bring me out of that by showing me that I am the one. I
Yeah.
am the one who calls you. I am the one who appoints you. So, yeah.
That's beautiful. And the only reason I say that, when you were talking the whole time, especially when you were saying how you don't need you. There's nothing wrong with discipleship. There's nothing wrong with
Absolutely.
mentorship. But He's the one that does all the shaping. He's the one that does all the
Absolutely.
grooming, right? And so even when we think about to the Bible days,
Mhm.
this little rugged
Yes.
shepherd boy, you know what I'm
Yes.
saying,
Yes.
who is working in the field amongst sheep, not knowing that the field is preparing him for the palace.
Yes.
You know, the field is
Mhm.
preparing him for his future destiny. And so
Yes.
what we get caught up in is seeing everything that we see on social media, and people being at
Yes.
this place, people being at this place, and them operating
Mhm.
this way, not knowing that the place that you are in at that very moment, God has you there for a reason,
Yes.
because He's
Yes.
shaping and defining your destiny. But will you be
Yes.
obedient enough to stay there and yield to His will and not yours?
Mhm.
And your will can be
Yes.
following what you see on social media, because she got it this way. I'm not good enough because she, or because he
Wow.
got it that way. Oh, I don't feel worthy
Mhm.
enough, or I
Wow.
try to do it myself. And now when you step
Yep.
out and do it on your own, you find yourself in trouble. But it's so crazy because this little boy, and God doesn't look on the outer appearance. He looks at the heart,
Mhm.
you know? And once he gets your heart and your heart is aligned with his, you can grow
Yes.
beyond anything. Stature isn't
Yep.
nothing to God. You know what I'm saying? A speech impediment. Your speech impediment. You
Right.
flowing. You flowing tonight. When I say you flowing. And I would not believe. Listen, when God told Moses to go to Pharaoh and speak, listen.
Listen.
He needed a tailor to just be like, what's good? You know what I'm saying? Let me step on scene. Let me do this. And so literally Moses is like, no, I can't do that. But once you
Right.
truly submit your will and submit
Mhm.
yourself, submit your problems, your insecurities, whatever it may be, to God, because that's the insecurity that Moses had. His
Yep.
stuttering problem, his speech
Mhm.
impediment.
Yep.
But God is
Mhm.
like, dude, step on scene and I'm gonna fill your mouth. You
Right.
know what I'm saying? I'm gonna give you the words to
Listen.
say. And so I don't
Wow.
know who this is for, to help you grow beyond what you're going through. Listen,
Wow.
step out and allow God to do the work. Just step
Wow.
out. Step out, grow beyond this insecurity, but in order for you to grow, you got to take that step, right? You have
Yes.
to take that
You
step.
have to.
Listen, this is really good to me. So, how I went there without going there, but how do we grow beyond this thing we call insecurity? How do we start to take those steps to grow beyond it? How did it look like for
Um,
you?
I would say for me, like I literally, it's so simple. I just keep my focus on Jesus. And I know that kind of sounds like that's my answer for
Right.
everything.
Yeah.
But when I look for validation, like saying before, when I look for validation and acceptance from God and not man, it's like, you realize you can do anything. I don't focus
Mm,
on what others have or how they do things, like you were saying, how they do
so
things on
good.
social media. Like I no longer compare myself to anybody. And I wasn't always like that. I used to literally look for ways that I could be like somebody else, so I could be great like them. But
Yeah.
I just I don't look to the world for anything. The
Mm,
world will always find faults in you in some kind of way.
yeah.
Like if you ask for the world's opinion on your gift or your calling, oh, you better believe they will find something,
Come
to either
on.
plant doubt or, just to kind of turn you the other way. And like I know even sometimes people in their love for you, and I've experienced this, like people in their love for you can also kind of get in the way or plant seeds of doubt or insecurities if you're not careful. Like even for me, I don't go to anybody to
Mm,
affirm me, right? Like it's not
come
saying I don't
on.
go for certain things, but I don't look to anybody to affirm me. I go to
Yeah.
God. I love that post where it says like I think it says like God, when God gave you the calling, when God called you, like it wasn't a conference call. And so
Come on.
like that is so true. Like how could anybody, like I just sit down and think like how could anybody possibly understand me? Like they really can't. Like it's
Mm,
almost impossible because to be honest, like before I was grounded in God, like I didn't even understand me. And so
mm,
now I just only look for affirmation in him, and by doing so I get rid of these insecurities. And it doesn't mean that I don't sometimes get in my head, but
yeah.
it just means that when I show up, I'm not showing up as myself or to bring glory to myself. Like I'm showing up with something different, something way more
Come
powerful than I could
on.
ever be. And his name is Jesus.
Come
Like his
on.
spirit lives inside of me. Like my favorite street preacher, he's actually a street preacher, but he's a pastor in Toronto. He said something so good the other day. He said, I've got good news living on the inside of me. And
Mm,
so when you really know that and you believe that and you
yeah.
walk in that, it's like, what do I have to be afraid of? Like insecurities where? Like I've literally got the lion of the tribe of Judah like roaring behind me and everything that I
Come
do. Like I don't
on.
have time for lies and insecurities. Like I don't have time for the enemy. And
Yes,
so,
I
when
don't.
I just fill my mind and my thoughts with God's truth, there is no room for the lies, you know, of the enemy because I know who my father says I am. And
Whoa.
honestly,
Wait a
like
minute.
it's
Wait, I'm
because of
sorry.
this.
I ain't trying to cut you off. Go. You got to say that one more time. Listen, when somebody on this podcast come and say something good, I just got to hit a mark more. Oh, nah, nah, nah. Take us back. We got to rewind.
Is that I know who my father says I am. And
Come
so,
on.
yeah, and honestly, it's just because of that that I'm able to face things and do things that 2 years ago, even a year ago, I could have never done. Like,
So
I
good.
mean, like, even now, I'm going toe to toe with experts. Like, all these things going on in the world, like, I'm facing these people head on. Like, I'm
Wow.
able to face, like, even in situations where I'm like hard situations, I'm able to face the enemy head on, afraid of nothing. And honestly, I owe it all to God. Like, He is my
Come
source, He
on.
is my strength. He gives me, like you said earlier, He gives me what to say and how to say, and when to say it. And when
Mm-hmm.
He says, just like Moses, like, I will be with you, like, wherever you go, I will be
Yeah.
with you. He means that. And for me, I'm seeing it every day. And so, again, like I was saying, it's not that insecurities don't try to get me, because I wouldn't lie. I'm faced with battles every day, and I would be lying to say that I never get in my head. But
Yeah.
even in situations, my faith even recently has been challenged. My beliefs, my knowledge, my intelligence, like things that I know to be truth, like
Right.
it has been challenged, but I've been able to overcome, and that's not in any of my doing, not in my power, but because my power source comes from God. And so, again, in this time, we're facing some giants, and I know people are facing giants in their own life, but and I know, even the question for many is like, how do we overcome? And my
Yeah.
answer is just simply with Jesus, period. Like, look back at the one, who formed you, who created you, who knows you. And, I know that that might seem redundant or, repetitive or cliche, but it's
Yeah.
true. In the moment that I let go of control and I just let Him in, everything changed. And I know for you, like, you'll see it for yourself. Like, my life flipped. I can say that honestly, nothing is the same for me. I am not even the same person. Like, I know if people hear
Wow.
this, people who knew me before and they hear this podcast, they will be like, who is that girl? Because it's not me. And so,
Wow.
yeah, I would say, if I were to give you any advice, like, draw closer to God, get in your word. He speaks in more ways than one. Again, I know I've shared different things on my page of, like, the numbers and how He kind of used numbers and all of these
Yeah.
different things.
Yeah.
Like, He showed in this period, He's kind of just showing me who He is in everything. And I remember I prayed that some time ago. I was like, God, I want to see You in everything. And He's literally revealing Himself in so many ways. And so, I literally see His word coming alive in my life. Like, I have
Wow.
experiences, like encounters, real life encounters, everyday
Yeah.
encounters on the street. Like, I have like real life things that I'm experiencing because He's working through me. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
yeah, I would, that's what I have to say. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. See, and when you were speaking, and you're saying your power source is Him, and we know that we all deal with people every single day, and
Mhm.
in this journey, through this thing called life, the only way that
Yeah.
we can truly grow is if we are
Mhm.
surrounded about around people that also have some type of source. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Who's connected
Absolutely.
to the source as well. And so,
Mhm.
because this life isn't meant for us to do it alone, right? And there's a lot of other
Absolutely.
people that can help us through different seasons of our lives. And
Mhm.
so my mind goes back to a sunflower, right? When we think about
Mhm.
just the picture of a sunflower in a sunflower field, if there is a sunflower beside a live sunflower, a blooming, a
Mhm.
prosperous sunflower, that
Mhm.
sunflower that is well lit, that is well growing, will turn to the dead one and like literally raise
Yeah.
it back to life. You feel me? And
Wow.
so yes, we have seasons where doubt come into our mind,
Yeah.
insecurity still want to
Mhm.
creep in, things want to still come
Mhm.
up. But if we got sunflowers around us,
Wow.
that are connected to the same,
Mhm.
that's getting the same energy from the same sun, Jesus Christ. Listen, there are
Mhm.
people that can pour into you as
Unstoppable.
well, and so
Absolutely.
it's all about who we're surrounding ourselves around,
Absolutely.
what we're feeding ourselves to help us
Mhm.
grow. You feel me? And you're a naturalist. You know all this stuff. Whatever you
Yes,
feed
yes, yes.
yourself is
Yeah,
either going to give you
absolutely.
energy or it's
Mhm.
going to kill you slowly. You
Yeah.
feel me?
Mhm.
And so if you
And that
continue to feed
absolutely.
yourself junk, you're going to kill. You're killing yourself slowly. You're dying slowly.
Yeah.
It may not all
Mhm.
happen at one time, but slowly but surely, you're just chopping stuff off. You're getting away
Yeah.
from God if we want to look at it in the spiritual realm. If we're surrounding
Yeah.
ourselves and feeding ourselves this type of stuff spiritually, slowly but surely, we're dying. You know what I'm saying? And
Yes.
so, listen,
100%.
it's time to grow beyond people. And
It's
you've
time to
heard it
grow
from the
all the
lioness
time.
herself, Miss Taylor Grant. Listen, y'all better remember the name. If you don't follow her now, you better follow her because this was amazing. She's given us
Wow.
a whole lot of jewels on how to grow
Mhm.
beyond this thing called
Oh,
insecurities. This girl said she had a speech impediment, She said she started
Hey,
speaking stuff over her life. When you look at her right now, you don't see none of that. I don't know what age that happened at, but you don't see none of that. And so, listen, right now you see two people on the screen that don't look like what they should be going through and don't look
wow.
like what, you know what I'm saying, what they should be going through, can be going through. Why? Because
Yes,
it's all a mindset. We choose to grow beyond. We choose to live
yes.
beyond. And so, thank you so much. Any last words that you want to leave the people before we let them go? Because you like, man, listen, I'm gonna let you do your thing. Anything you got to say.
Oh, it was an honor. I actually really enjoy this. Like I was
Yeah.
telling you before, I haven't really done this before. So
Yeah.
yeah, I really enjoyed
Dope.
this, and I hope that it blessed somebody. I pray that this blessed someone for
Yeah.
sure.
Perfect. Listen, y'all, Miss Taylor Grant herself, thank you so much for coming to the podcast. Listen, folks, it's not stopping. We still got our foot on the gas. You still got some more special guests coming to the stage. But thank you so much for tuning in to this episode. And again, thank you, Miss Taylor.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, y'all. Y'all be blessed.
Okay. Bye.